And we are live. TikTok live number 74 now. Guys, top 5 listeners who are in TikTok right now on the live. The top 5 listeners who stay on the longest. I give you guys a shout out in the caption of podcast YouTube when I post this later. Okay, so the first one right here, asked by Chris Fazarali. I got accepted to dental school last week. Any study tips to share with a year one student? Yeah, my favorite was Quizlet. With the premium version, you put figures on each of the cards. Question, answer, front, question, back, answer. And make sure you put different figures on every single card. Sometimes you could do like question A, B, and C. If you have 3 questions based on one topic that you need to do, I would do that all the time. I wouldn't go more than 3 though. Otherwise, it'll get a bit busy. Yeah, so that was my thing. But there's other options people used were Anki and Brainscape, so you could check those out. But my thing was Quizlet, premium version, just rapid fire cards, as many repetitions of those questions that you could get. I like the live. Thanks, Maya. Ken Williams joined. Bees joined. Aniki1 said, what it was your post-residency life? Well, getting the license quite a bit more stressful than I anticipated. And I have part 2 of the oral boards in like January, February. But to register for it as an oral surgeon, they want you to have hospital privileges. So I need to show that my hospital privileges are pending in order to pay for that. And if you don't pay for it on time, it goes up 10%. And if you don't know, the oral board exam, which is part 2, the first part was $2,300. The second part is $3,300. And it goes up 10% if you register after the deadline. The deadline was like yesterday because I only got my license 2 weeks ago. So I only had like 2 weeks to start searching for hospitals to get privileges in. And I don't know, obviously you can see I wasn't going to get it in 2 weeks. Everything's been very busy and kind of stressful because now I'm going to have to pay another $330 for the board exam just because, I don't know. I don't think that's very respective to people's timeline. So that's where we are. Post-residency life. Did a lot of traveling. Went to London, southern UK. Went to Cornwall. Went to Ireland for a couple of days. And did Costa Rica, Florida. Saw some friends. Saw some family. So far, it's been good. It was a good 2.5 months off of residency. So I was very happy about that. And I'm excited to get to start working. I really want to maximize my routine to get into a nice groove, get into a good groove with the day-to-day. So Joel said, did you do any OMFS externships? I did. I did 3 OMFS externships. I had 5 booked. 4 this is height of COVID, 2020. So I had 5 booked. I had LSU Shreveport, Cook County. I had LIJ, had Montefiore. And what was the 5th one? There was a 5th one that I was trying to get. I forget what it was. But then they all canceled except for Montefiore. Montefiore kept going, so I kept that one on. And then I booked NYU and VCU after that. So those are the 3 I got in the middle of COVID. It was very difficult to get those externships in. For you, what I would focus on with oral surgery OMFS externships, I would try and get at least 3 in. 3 seems to be the magic number. If you could do more, sure, get them. Do it. The more the merrier, right? But I would try and book your externships at programs where they're kind of like reach schools, quote unquote. Like you don't, if you could get in here, if you don't expect to, but if you could get in here, you'd love it. You'd be so ecstatic. That's where you want to schedule. You don't expect to get an interview there or get in. That's where I would suggest. Those are where you should get your externships and go to. Okay, that's something to consider. The reason being is, say you go there and you vibe well with the program. Great. You didn't expect an interview to get an interview at that program, and you just did. But if you go to a program and you don't vibe with them really well, you just don't mesh very well with the residents or some attendings or the program itself, and you're at one that you want an interview at, or you expected to get an interview at, you just lost one. Okay, so that's why you want to do externships strategically. Joel, does that make sense? What do you think there? You see what I mean? Let me know what you think about that. AGR said, hello, UNC, UNC or UNC? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. James Nason said, what is the way to avoid cavities when my wisdom teeth grow? I can't afford to brushing, flossing, maybe you have a water pick, mouthwash, good oral hygiene. That also includes the diet. I know a lot of people, they don't consider that, but the diet, if you have a diet that's full of sugars left and right, you are more prone. You have an increased chance of getting cavities, right? This is simple stuff. So I would be very conscientious of what your diet is day to day, and then I would make sure you're staying on top of brushing 2 to 3 times a day, flossing at least once a day, and that, okay? Gizia said, does medicine or general dentistry have a better ROI financially? Well, first, I wouldn't pick a career solely based off of financial ROI, right? The next thing is I would consider I mean, they both can be very, very well financially, but I think what you're going to want to find is a career path where you have more freedom, right? There's financial freedom, there's time freedom to do things that you want to do. And I felt that dentistry had a better ROI of life, of freedom, of being excited when you go into that practice that maybe you own one day. So that's why I went to dentistry. And it's changing, but I still think it is better than medicine. Just my personal opinion. Meow said, "Hi, handsome." Hello. User 5797 said, "Yo, what's going on?" User 5797 said, "What do you about GPR?" So I think you mean, what do you think about GPR? I think it's great. I think it gives you, depending on how your experiences were clinically in dental school, I think it's a great opportunity for you to get an extra year in. And as we know, some states require you to do 1 year of GPR. Like I'm in New York, so they require you to do some form of residency at least 1 year. So you'd have to do it in some certain states, right? Anaki1 said, "If you are comfortable, can you share what your salary range will be now?" It will be a lot more than residency. Residency, my first year salary was 69,000. Second year was 75. Third year was about 80, and then my last year we got a chief, like a bump for being a chief resident, and it was 85. So my last year salary was about 85,000, and it's going to be more than that as an actual oral surgeon. And I think another thing to consider is like how many hours a week you work. I'm going to be working less hours, which is going to be pretty nice. If you can make more money doing less work, I think that's a really good thing to think about when you're looking for career paths and stuff. And oral surgeons range anywhere from 1,000 to upwards of over 1 million. And that's also dictated largely by your location throughout the country. Certain states have insurance reimbursements that are higher or lower than others. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Ooh, I just lost my spot here. Where are we? Turtable said, "My friend applied to like 30 OMFS programs. Does that look bad?" No, I think that's fine. How many times do you want to go through this? That's funny because a lot of people in dental school, they think like, "Oh, don't apply to too many. That's not going to look good on your application." They're not looking at how many residency programs you apply to. They're not looking at that. They have a lot bigger thing. Let me tell you, they have a lot bigger, more important things to do if you're a program director or even a program coordinator. They got a lot more going on and looking to see how many residencies this person apply to. You ever think of that? You know what I mean? Like they're busy. And they're looking more like your CBSE scores, the school you came from, your ranking, what are your extracurriculars, what are your letters of recommendations like, what externships, what programs did you do externships at? Okay, that's more important and pertinent for them when they're looking at your application. So keep that in mind. Tyrese loves cats. Thoughts on working a year as a general dentist before applying to OMFS residency? My personal opinion would be to go into OMFS residency. I wouldn't dilly-dally. I wouldn't take, and maybe you want to save up some money, and that's fair. That's very fair. I didn't do it that way. I went right in, and I would suggest going right in. It's going to be a lot harder for you to get back into, the educational trail, the educational pathway, the training, especially in residency, because that's much different from dental school. But I also don't know your personal situation. So that would be my personal thoughts just in general, but I don't know what your situation is specifically, so it wouldn't be tailored to you, right? So I need more information. Old me, Kenobi said, "I'm a young registered dental hygienist, RDH. What are some career paths you recommend to solidify my future prospects? MBA, MPH?" Those are some career paths you could potentially look into. But if you're a registered dental hygienist, I would look into how you can maximize your daily routine, as well as like what are you interested to do as far as like day to day? Do you want to work 6 days a week to maximize more money? Do you want to work like 3 to 4 days a week and use this days off to expand on other projects? Maybe your education, if you wanted to. You mentioned MBA and MPH, but like you could get your MBA and MPH, but this is what I want you to think about: is how is that going to be beneficial for you for your career? Are you going to use that? What are you going to do with that degree? Sure, education's great, but I think we need to be thinking about these days is like, what are you going to do with that education? What's the goal? Like, for example, I get asked the question all the time: 4 year versus 6 year oral surgery residency. Why would you take the 2 years extra to get your MD when the majority of oral surgeons, we all do, like 99% of us all do the same oral surgery, and you don't need an MD to do that? So why would you spend an extra 2 years, potentially an extra 2 years of tuition at the medical school during residency to do that? And then the third thing to think about with that is, say you're looking at the 6 year, that 6 year, many times at many residencies, it's in the middle of your training. So you're doing oral surgery for a couple of years, but then you're taking a 2-year gap to go work on like feet and the stomach and diabetes, right? And then you're coming back and doing surgery again. It's not like a quick 4 years like my training was, or a 4-year resident would. 4 years, you're pretty much doing oral surgery the whole way. Sure, you have the general surgery rotation, you have the anesthesia rotations, but you're 4 years doing it. When you're doing the 6 year, you're constantly stepping out of the OR, doing oral surgery, not literally stepping out of the OR, but you're stepping out of your oral surgery training to go do other things. And I don't know, that the breaks might be nice, but it's also it also kind of spreads out where you got to keep, you're getting back on the horse so many times, you're going to forget how to ride it a little bit. Maybe not forget how to ride it, but it's constant stepping in and out of that. Does that make sense? So I didn't really want to be dancing around oral surgery. I wanted to be doing it constantly in order to get good at it for when I get out, So just my thoughts, Gulf Dude Ferda said, OMFS in Michigan here. How was the first couple months of practice been? I start tomorrow. Awesome. So you're in Michigan. That sounds pretty excellent. How long have you been working? Are you a resident in Michigan or are you working in Michigan? And yeah, I start practicing tomorrow because it took so long to get that license. Jesus. Turtable said, thank you. You got it, Turtable. I hope that makes sense, and I hope it helps you out a little bit there. And Aniki1 said, thank you for sharing your experience. I really appreciate it. Yeah, you got it. Let me know how else I can help. Tyrese Love Katz said, would you personally recommend your OMFS residency to future candidates? One thing to consider about NYU is that you get free med school there, right? So it's one of the 1 or 2, maybe 3 tops that you get free tuition for those 2 years in medical school in the country. So maybe that's something that you want to consider. It wouldn't be what I personally recommend. I think you need to think about, would it align with your personal ambitions and interests, right? So if you want to do the 6-year program, that would be a good one because you get it paid for, right? You get paid through that rather than you having to pay them through those 2 years of med school, right? We also, right now, we have an outstanding attending at the VA, and for an all-in-X, zygomatic implants, IPS, big, dental implant cases, we learn everything, the T's, ins and outs from that attending at the VA. He's outstanding, and that's something that probably my favorite part of the program right now. So that's something to consider. Another thing is, it's changed a lot. We get post-call now. We have a lot more residents on service now. So when I was there, I had to take a lot more call than the residents have to take right now because there's more residents all on service now than when I was there. But yeah, so I don't know. You can ask more questions about it. But Tyrese Loscat says, have you heard anything about any news about more OMFS programs opening up and or more spots being added to a program? I did hear potentially 2 more spots might come to Mount Sinai, but that's not for certain. I don't know. I haven't heard about OMFS programs opening up. I haven't. Ayan said, any opinions on the COTA accredited dental school in Turkey and Saudi Arabia? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't heard about this. That sounds pretty interesting, though. I got to hear about that. Someone needs to tell me. Roll Me Kenobi said, makes sense. Thank you for sharing your insight. Yeah, man, you got it. Oh, Golf Dude Ferda has been in practice for 28 years in Michigan. Interesting. Golf Dude Ferda, I'm curious for you. What would you say I should be looking at, right now, obviously, you've got to take the boards in 5 months. So studying for that in addition to starting to work a lot, right? What are some other things I should be focused on or thinking about in these next, say, 6 months, this next year to my first 3 years out potentially? I'm curious what would you say, Golf Dude Ferda? Any thoughts there? Any ideas? Ariane T said, hey, I'm a D2. Cool. Congrats. Class rank is top 30s and 80 CBSE. Is my test score enough to make up for my rank? That's a strong CBSE score. And top 30s, I think it's good. I don't know how big your dental school is. Hopefully it's like over 90 to 100, and then you're in the top third or top 25%. I think you have potential to make up for it with that strong CBSE score, especially for applying to certain programs. So I think you're sitting in a good spot. Try and get your rank up better. Remember, dental school's a lot more than just ranking and studying, right? Letters of recommendation. You have externships coming up, and you're only D2. You just crossed the CBSE. You got a lot of time, so I would think about externships now. Okay, I would really try and get yourself out there and see what's out there in the country, so you can mold your application process towards a program you want to be at, right? That you're interested in. All right. What do you think about that, RNC? Dr. Ismail Fati. Hello, Doc. Why do you work in Long Island and not Manhattan? Is the competition too high? I'm working I just start tomorrow in Melville. in it on Long Island. But I mean, maybe in the city, but I'm from Long Island. This is where I wanted to work. I'm not running from some competition. I wanted to live out here and work out here. This is where I'm from. This is my neck of the woods. So Sarah Benani said, "What extra activities, extracurriculars, externships did you take before the OMFS program in dental school?" Did 3 externships, right? NYU, Montefiore, VCU. Other extracurriculars. I mean, I played the violin outside. I have an LLC that some people ask me about on my interviews because they saw it on my CV. They asked me about playing the violin. I also did a research project on laser decontamination of implant surfaces. I did that research with Dr. Georgios Romanos at Stony Brook during dental school, and yeah, so that's some of the stuff I did. I was part of ASDA. I was the treasurer of my class, things like that. All right, Dr. Ismail Fadi, I understand. Thank you for your share. Thank you for sharing, and good chance for tomorrow. But I think you're saying like good luck for it. Thanks, man. Arian T said, I really want to get into a program in New York. I've always dreamed of living there. Recommendations? Yeah, I mean, extern a lot in New York. I would start to look at programs out there that you are interested in going to. And yeah, you're gonna have to get some externships in the area. That's what my recommendation is. Because then if they see you're at Michigan, right? And you finish the CBC and you use your next 2 years to shadow and extern at programs in New York, they're going to see that you're committed. You're taking as much effort as you can. You're putting it towards applying to and ultimately matching into a New York program. Okay, I think that's what you should do. That's a good idea. Ayan said, do almost 4-year programs consider undergrad transcripts and experience? I don't think so. I'm not like on the board of programs, so I don't know, but I don't think so. I think they're only looking at undergrad transcripts when you apply to medical school, right? Because they're comparing you to other applicants that they need in their portfolios for other medical students that are coming from undergrad, right? So that's why they might look at your undergrad transcripts there. But they're not, I mean, you're in the oral surgery program if they're asking for your transcripts to the medical school that's associated with that OMFS residency, right? So, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. Vincent said, any tips for medicine rotation? Yeah, I mean, just do your work. Just work with the internal medicine residents, the IM residents that you're working with on that rotation. Take it day to day. Make sure you're there early on the first day to make sure and then you're going to be getting patients that you're managing from a medical standpoint. You're going to be doing rounds a couple times a day. I like that rotation. It wasn't too complicated. I got a lot of time at the desk, and you get a little insight to managing patients from the medical side, Here we go. Aiden said, Canadian student applying to Australia. Thoughts? Well, I mean, I'm in New York. I can't give you much insight, unfortunately, to Canada or Australia. So I'm sorry about that. Anthrope Defense Systems. Question: what would happen if you stood in a particle accelerator with an opposing object? No idea. Is that a joke? Well, tell me. Gizia said, "What's the baseline income for general dentist with ownership?" There's no like baseline income, and when you own, it's going to depend how many opportunities you have, how many days a week you work, what location in the country that you're working in, because the reimbursement is going to be different. It's going to depend on what you do day in and day out. How hard is your team working? How well do you work with your team? Things like that. You know what I mean? It's going to fluctuate. It's going to really be variable, but based on those things. So Aeon said, do you know any program where international dentists matched into OMFS? Yes, I know. Montefiore, they had that. VCU, they had that. NYU, they don't have that. UNC, they had that. LSU, they had that. Yes, that's about all I know. I don't know enough, unfortunately. Aeon said, thanks for all the info. Yeah, you got it. Aiden said, what's up with the idea of saturation of general dentists? Is that true? It's saturated in certain areas, but not saturated in others. And that could affect like you getting your schedule filled potentially. I think where it really affects is that insurance companies in highly populated areas of dentistry, they're not reimbursing those dentists as much as they will in like a much less populated area. And I don't think that is good. That doesn't make sense. So while people think that it's competition in getting patients, like there's millions of people in Manhattan. You have a lot more dentists in there, but you have a lot more people in there. The competition comes down to, I think, is in the back end, getting reimbursed for the treatment that you do. Make sense? You know what I mean? Tony, when you start your job, yep, tomorrow. When do you start your job? Unless you've already started. I start tomorrow. I'm excited. Maybe I'll see you there, Tony. You want to come in for a consult? Ara Benani said, as a foreign dentist, I found very limited OMFS programs that accepts non-COTA accredited titles. Taking enough extra activities and externships is crucial. Any recommendations? Yeah, I agree. That is going to be it. You need to find what programs will take international dentists, right? After you completed all those preliminary courses in and dental school and stuff, right? Arian T said, "How early can I start externships? People told me to start at D3, but could I do it right now?" Yeah, Arian, you got to remember, every dental school is different. You know, their rules, their regulations, there's going to be a lot of different. It's pretty variable. You know, like I could start doing it my D2 year, but I heard NYU doesn't allow you to start doing externships until sometime in D3 year. So different dental schools have different rules. You should ask your program, see what your dental school lets you do, and ask your older dental students that are going into oral surgery or applying for oral surgery what they did. You know what I mean? A said, which UFC fighter did you operate on? I can't say, man. That's a HIPAA problem, you know. Gizia said, how hard is it to own your own practice after dental school? It's tough because, I mean, first you got to find a practice, right, to buy, or you're going to start it from the scratch and build it. You need to have a lot of money to do that. And then you need to be able to fill those appointment books. If it's a new office, you got to, or even if you're replacing a dentist or working with a dentist and transferring ownership, it's going to take a while to work up your reputation and your name in that office for people to come and want to see you, you know? So it's tough, but it is doable. Al said, or Boules said, thoughts are becoming class president in dental school for OMFS application. Sure, you could do it. It shows that you did other things in dental school rather than just dentistry and learning teeth, right, and studying for exams. But, you know, it's not like crucial. Neither is research. It's not like required. In dental school, you're like research is good and different programs will ask you. Like I was asked more. I had 14, 15 interviews. 8 of them asked me about playing the violin. 2, 3 tops asked me about the research that I did. So that's something to think about. It's going to be similar as class president. You know, it's really good. It's good to advocate for your class and get involved. Politics, unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with. And it shows that you did something in your dental school, but it's not like required. You know, it's not totally necessary. Tony, do you plan on doing orthognathic surgery or no? Well, first I got to get hospital privileges, and most hospitals on Long Island aren't paying you to take call. You need to take call for hospital privileges most of the time. And then once you get hospital privileges, then you could operate there. I got to see. It's not just like a walk in the park where you just graduate and all of a sudden the hospital lets you just start doing cases on it. So I got to see. I got to see about that. It's not so easy to get hospital privileges at a place that is going to be lenient with you, like with the call schedule, with going to the OR and actually paying you and stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it as far as doing orthognathic surgery and other big surgeries in the hospital setting after residency. Sarah Benani said, Tony, I wanted to ask that too. But yeah, I could definitely do it. I would probably want to go to the OR and do those surgeries with a partner if I can do that. But yeah, the call thing and not getting paid to take calls is an issue. Gizia said, do you have MD in your title as well? Nope, I didn't. I didn't do the 6-year oral surgery residency. I did 4. Anaki 1 said, how old were you when you started dentistry in university? I took a gap year. So I graduated undergrad at 22 years old? I graduated undergrad 22 years old, I think it was. So I started dental school when I was 23 years old. 23. Yeah. So 23, graduated 27, started residency 27 to 31 because I'm 31 now and I just graduated. Yeah. Aiden said, have you ever made mistakes on patients? Well, what do you mean mistakes? Like mistakes in surgery? Luckily, with surgery, you could like fix a lot of things, you know, and many times as you get good in surgery, you could foresee things, complications happening and prevent them from happening. So that's something to think about. It's like the more you play basketball, you could kind of see when an opening is going to be to get a pass and make a layup, you know? You start as the more you play, the more you practice, the more you train in surgery, the more you could prevent complications going on. All right. Omar Hamden said, any Canadian do OMFS in the state? Can a Canadian do OMFS in the States? Yes, I do know. In fact, I was just talking with Nicholas Kim. He's an oral surgeon in All County with me out here on Long Island, and he's from Canada, but he went to dental school first. He went to UPenn, and then he went to Boston University oral surgery, and he would be someone that knows more about that than I do. Does that make sense? So I don't know. I do know Canadians that went to residency at Montefiore and VCU, right? Dudiev said, what does scope look like for plastics versus OMFS? Very similar in the facial region. And then, I mean, in oral surgery, we're honing into maxillofacial area, the jaws, the oral cavity. And if you go into cancer, even more of the neck and stuff. If you go into a plastics fellowship after oral surgery residency, you could work on rest of the body even. But plastics is full body. And there's a lot of overlap between plastics and hand. But especially the biggest thing I would say in residency, the overlap is going to be some of the procedures in this area, but then also facial trauma. Okay, we oral surgery, plastic surgery, and ENT surgery services. We all do facial trauma and level one trauma centers, for example, they might rotate every week, every day. We were every day. So every what would it be third, fourth day we were on facial trauma on call. Jfcjdbddj said, "Hey doc, have you started work already? How's it been?" Nope, I start tomorrow. I went in the office twice last week to finish up some paperwork, basically, and stuff, but and take a look at the schedule this week. So I'm ready to go. I'm excited, and then I'm off Friday because Friday morning we fly down to Puerto Rico. I'm going to be seeing Bad Bunny on Sunday, so I'm pumped for that. And then I come back Monday, start work again next Tuesday. So yeah, has anyone seen Bad Bunny? What do you think? How's the show? Dr. Reset said, "Will you be working in this private practice and hospital as well?" Well, I'm trying to find a hospital that I could get privileges in. But yeah, I'll be in this private practice in Melville at All County Oral Surgery here in New York on Long Island. But yeah, the hospital I'm still looking for. I've submitted information to two places yet, and it's like there's an application fee that I wasn't told about. Someone want you to get doctor's appointments. Some of them want you to like teach in a clinic once a month or teach a course however much. And I mean, I don't know. I'm just starting to work. I can't just take off days from work willy nilly when I have responsibilities to the practice. Like I signed a contract with the boss, the surgeon who owns all the practices, and I can't just be taking days off willy nilly once a month. So I don't know. I got to figure out how this is going to work. You know, Dr. Isa, you said that. Sarah Benani replying to Omar Hamden, yes. Omar Hamden said thank you. Boules said, if you had to pick a fellowship, what would it be? I would not pick a fellowship. And if I had to, I wouldn't pick a fellowship. That's what I would do. I would try and figure out something else. If I was to pick a fellowship, I would try and learn. I would work. I wouldn't do it. But if it was, I wouldn't do it like a traditional fellowship. I would go and learn from an outstanding surgeon and see if I could work for them, and like spend a year working for them as like an apprentice or intern and just work for them, do the things the procedures in their office that they don't want to do to kind of help them out with that, and then assist them on bigger cases that you want to learn from them about. You know what I mean? Angel James Wims followed the live creator. Thanks, Carl. Cool said, can someone in a 4-year go for a fellowship? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. JD said, do you work Mondays? And is your Melville office looking for more assistance on Mondays? 4 years experience. Hey, come in, send me the resume. You can DM me on Instagram too. Send me the resume and maybe I'll get you in. I'm looking to stay later after I take the boards in like January, February. I'm looking to stay later on Mondays. I want to work on Mondays as like a late day to give patients an opportunity to come in after work on Monday to get like whatever work they need. Any emergencies taken care of. So if you'd be willing to, stay later on Mondays, that would be huge for me. That's something I really want to do. Tony said, regarding the UFC fighter you operated on, did you know of them before? I didn't know of them before. No. Let's see. Bull said, why are you against the fellowship? Like what? Because it's more time where you're making just like higher level resident money, but it's still essentially a resident salary. It's not that big. And I would read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That kind of goes into the route of like the more you specialize, the more in some circumstances in the medical side, you're pigeonholing yourself into. Now, you might be getting more training in certain areas in a fellowship. Maybe you're doing head and neck cancer, for example, but in some aspects, you might be pigeonholing yourself into less procedures, but you might not necessarily be getting increased pay for those procedures that you're doing. And I did see that in the New York hospitals. Like, for example, an orthopedic surgeon or plastic surgeon goes and does a fellowship in the hand or, in the arm. And I don't know. I don't know if you get compensated as well. If you really love that procedure, in that one area and you want to go more focused in that, sure, do it. But you'll see. Ask people that do fellowships. I know someone who did a fellowship in plastics after an oral surgery residency and ended up working like a day a week at Clear Choice, which is all Onyx implants and stuff. Does it pay off for the long run? Your specialty training. Glenroy said, I have double jaw surgery in 8 weeks. Any advice? Yeah, I would follow all the directions that your surgeons give you leading up to that. Okay. No eating the night before, right? No eating after midnight the night before. Follow any recommendations they give you about medications, what to take, what to stop, what just that's it. Just follow the instructions. Okay. That's the biggest thing I could say. Jfcjdbddj said, what do you think your schedule would look like on Mondays? I don't know. I mean, after the boards, I would like to start a little bit later, maybe like 10 and then stay a little bit later. So like start at 10 or 11 a.m. and then work until maybe 7, 8 p.m. That's my goal. That's my goal. I think it'll be a good opportunity for patients. And then it'll allow like us to maximize our weekends a little more, right? So it's best of both worlds, I think. Saffar said, Doc, I got a dental school interview this week. Congrats. Well done. How much should I prep? It's 100 Qs. Is 100 questions too much prep? Wait, so remember, the interview is a conversation. It's not like a multiple choice exam. And everything you just said here kind of makes me think of like you're prepping for like it's a multiple choice exam, like a final or something. It's not. Like it's a conversation. You should be working on conversational, meeting people, chatting. That's it. Trying to find common ground with people. Cyrus said, do you know anything about Case's 5-year OMFS program? I do. I know that they had 2 unmatched spots last year, despite getting your MD in only 5 years rather than 6, which is all the other programs throughout the country. So you're saving a year to get your MD. I think that's a pretty solid opportunity. But why did they go unmatched? That I don't know. Because I know they have a great program. I know people at Case, and they're strong residents. Yeah, I don't know. I know it's a good program. Eric Newen said, hey, Doc, how does it feel finally moving out of the city? It feels good. I mean, I love it. I'm in Smithtown. That's the town I grew up in out on Long Island. The one thing I would say is in the city, it was nice to have everything in arm's reach. Like literally my apartment was probably the size of this room. And, the kitchen's over here, the water's over here, the bathroom's right behind you. You got I had the windows looking out in the little Kips Bay area. And that was nice. In the building, I had laundry downstairs. I had a little fitness center downstairs. So that was really nice. But yeah, I like Long Island. I like being out here. I do have to factor in the driving time because my commute and residency was like 5 to 10 minutes just walking into the hospitals. But now I'll be driving 30 to 40 minutes minimum, to and from one way to the office and back. So that's at least an hour I'm going to lose by just driving. So I'm going to have to figure out how can I maximize that drive. You see what I'm saying? I'm big about like efficiency and productivity. So now that I have an hour minimum driving, my commute to and from work, how am I going to use that? Probably podcasts, but I would listen to podcasts while I worked out, so that's not like a big game changer. I don't know. Maybe I got to find, I think right now, at least for the next 6 months, if I could find something to do with board studying in the car, that's probably going to be the biggest thing. You know what I mean? Finding somewhere to get some extra learning in those 30 minutes. Will Wilton said, recommend. Did I miss that or something? Vincent, which procedures do you, Will Wilton, can you put something in again? Can you put that in again? I missed I don't see your message here actually. Vincent, which procedures do you wish you spent more time on doing during residency? Potentially maybe TMJ, full joint replacements. That was something I didn't get to do. Unfortunately, a lot of residents in our program didn't get to do. More time, I don't know, maybe all in X's and everything's great. All in X's, zygomatic implants, IPSs are great. I got a great experience with them. So, I mean, more is great, but I got what I needed. Maybe facial fractures, jaw fractures. I got a lot of them. There was a period where our program wasn't getting too many. Between end of 2024 through middle of 5 months into 2025. So maybe that. I don't know. I think I got a good experience with everything I needed. CJD said at Andre, hey Andre, which school, if you don't mind sharing? Folding Wallet said, hey Doc, I have a histology exam this week and I'm losing my mind. That histology, I don't know. You're not going to be using it too much later, let me tell you. Andre, well, a little bit on like a question or two on the boards exam. Andre Saffar said, I don't know, I just hear people do like sample questions from Student Doctor Network to have an idea of what they could ask. Yeah. I mean, you could do that. The top 4 to 5 most common questions, and this is even for dental school too, but for residency, it's going to be, tell me a little something about yourself, which you want to be able to answer in like under a minute and a half. You don't want to be talking the arrow for 5 minutes. Why oral surgery? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And why do you want to go to our program? Among all these programs out there or dental schools out there, those 5 questions you should really focus on. Okay. But everything after that, it's just knowing what you submitted on your CV. You don't want to be asked a question about your resume in the middle of of an interview and you forget what they're talking about. You forget what the title of your publication was. I have a friend who told me that happened, and that's not great, Anaki said, what kind of podcasts are you listening to? Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V's podcast is one. All In Podcast is another one. I like Lex Fridman. I like Joe Rogan. And what's another one? I also like, what's his name? Patrick Bet-David. He's a good one. But yeah, Lex Fridman, Gary Vaynerchuk, Joe Rogan. Those are my top podcasts. Yeah, All In and the other one. Those are pretty good. Those are the ones I listen to. I like Cody Sanchez as well. I like, what's her name? Layla. She's Alex Hormozy's wife. She's pretty good. Yeah, so those are some of the podcasts. Andre Saffar said, I'll DM you. Yeah, DM me, or DM him, I guess, since you're not. Anaki said, are you staying in the same hospital where you did residency? No. I'm way out. I'm like an hour and a half out from Manhattan now, so hour and a half, 2 hours. I won't be in that same hospital. Sierra said, is there any advantages to getting the MD? Yeah, I mean, you're learning about a lot of stuff from the medical standpoint. That's something, right? Good credentials. Maybe if you end up working at a hospital or an academic center, maybe they'll pay you more. I don't think that'll end up being true, but I don't know, maybe. The big substantial thing is that now you don't need the MD to apply to a fellowship. It may potentially help you with the networking and them seeing that you have your MD as well. That could potentially help you when applying for fellowships, but it's not required. It's not necessary. It's a maybe. You know what I mean? Omar Moad, dental student, said, what are your thoughts about taking the CBSE during D1? Yeah, you can, but I wouldn't hop, skip, and jump into taking that CBSE when you still need to work on getting your grades up or your ranking up or managing those classes, because it's a lot in dental school. And then they add on clinic, right? So see, hey, maybe you can do it during D1, but I would make sure you get down dental school first before you worry about the CBSE, okay? Andre Saffar said, perfect, thank you so much. I thought I would need to know these complex questions. No, not usually. And maybe for some of those residencies, but I didn't have any residency that asked me like an academic or didactic question or like a surgical question. None of them did, Anaki said, why did you not stay there in the city? Oh, because I'm from Long Island. This is where I want to live. This is where I want to practice. And I wouldn't keep hospital privileges at NYU or at one of the hospitals that I did residency at in the city because it's too far. That would be way too far. I wouldn't be able to do anything there, Jfcjdbddj said they do mock cases. Okay. I mean, I didn't get any mock cases on my 14, 15 interviews in residency. No mock cases. And I had residencies everywhere from New York to LA. So the whole country. So yeah. Yer said, congrats on finishing residency. Thanks, Yer. Thanks, man. Boules said, what did you get on the CBSE, if you don't mind me asking? I got the score I needed to get 14, 15 interviews. That's what I got. You just got to get the best score that you can, okay? Jfcjdbddj said they do mock cases. All right. I mean, I guess I didn't have any mock cases, but I guess you're saying they're doing them now. I think that's kind of stupid. You're not, you shouldn't be expected to know cases when you're a dental student. Ira said, are you potentially planning to own a practice one day? Maybe, if I can get to it, that would be great. We'll see. I'd like to be a partner in a practice. That would be pretty awesome. Madeline Van Aken said, hi, handsome. Hi, Madeline. JFCJD said, I think it filtered my previous comment before that. Oh, okay. Mahir Zaman 613 said, hey, bro, do you need a video editor? Show me what you can do. Send me a DM on Instagram and show me what you can do. We'll go from there. Let's see how good your work is. Brian Lee Ginsell 917 said, how serious are dental schools about taking online classes? Are they against it as in prerequisites? I don't know. I didn't have any issues with that. I don't think should be fine. Omar Moa, dental student, said, what is a competitive GPA for OMFS? The school doesn't rank. Competitive GPA, I mean, just as high as you can get, If it's high, if you're up there, if you said they don't rank, but you have good scores and everything and your CBSE, you should be just fine, okay? Mahir Zaman said, I'll hit you up. Yeah, let me know. Georgie said, is periodontal surgery done by OMFS or periodontist? Both. And periodontal surgery has a wide range, but I would say both, yeah. Mahir Zaman 613 said, what's your Insta? My Insta's Dr. Gallagher. So doctor spelled out, doctor, and then Gallagher. Tony, what's your least favorite procedure to perform? Ooh, it's been a while since... my least favorite would be, so I do like getting supernumerary teeth or like mesidens, palatal impaction. My least favorite is one that's so high up, it's practically on the nose on a patient who is having trouble tolerating that procedure. So maybe it needs to go to an OR or maybe they need more medications to sedate. But Yeah, because those are so hard on your back and neck, looking upside down. Like, yeah, that's probably my least favorite. And I enjoy doing the surgery. It's just the posture that you need to hold and maintain for a certain amount of time until that tooth comes out, and it's a really high up mesiodens. Yeah, that could be tough. You know what I mean? Mahir's amount found it. Nice, nice, nice. Madeline Van Aken said, "Wait, can I send you a DM too? LOL, no video editing here though. Sure, send me a DM. What can I help you with?" Boules said, "How many programs did you apply to? Mix of 4 and 6 year programs." I did mostly, like 95% of them were 4 year programs that I applied to. It was, I think I remember I was applying to like 20 to 30, and then COVID hit, and I found out at VCU that they were having like, within like 2 weeks, they blew past their total number of applications they usually get. So I was like, wait, so more people are applying to OMFS. And then I think later on I went like 30 to 40. You know what I mean? That makes sense, right? Because if there are more people applying, you want to get noticed by their programs. So Blank said, "What do you think of going to dentistry for money and ULB if I have interest in it would have zero debt?" What? No, I don't think of going to any career for just the money is good. I'm against that. I disagree with that. Brogy said, "Same. I'm about to take an online anatomy, and I don't know if that's okay." I don't know. These online courses weren't that prevalent. They weren't that frequent. There weren't so many of them out there as there were after COVID, right? And my undergrad was 2012 to 2016. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. YouTube channel, what? Bond called OS Fight Club has mock cases you can listen to during your drive tour. Oh, for the boards, you're saying mock cases on the YouTube channel OS Fight Club. Yeah, I could look into that. I'm gonna look into that. Thanks for letting me know. Sam_Miller said, "What was your undergrad major?" It was initially biomolecular sciences from NYU Poly, but it came out to be chemical biology from Stevens Institute of Technology in New Jersey, Hoboken, New Jersey. And that's basically just biochem. That's essentially it. Let's see. Andre Saffar said, "It's not known in it's not shown in your transcripts, so they don't know unless you tell them." Oh, that's helpful. That's pretty good. Jfcjdbddj, you may or may not have heard of them. Yeah, I heard of the Fight Club, but I didn't hear of Bond. Rogi said, "Above what DAT score do you think is competitive? 21 or higher is like, you could potentially get interviews to like a 1920, but I would try and aim for 21 or higher on the DAT." Also, the scores are changing, so I got to look into what the new scores are. All right, friends. Say what said I graduated from NYU too, NYU Dental School too. Well, I actually graduated from Stony Brook Dental School, but NYU's oral surgery program. But congrats, yeah, well done, well done. All right, friends, I got to sign off and go. I'm going to head into the week. I start work for the first day tomorrow. Today's TikTok live number 74. So the top 5 listeners on the TikTok live, whoever stayed on the longest, it shows me that in the end. So I'll be giving you guys a shout out in the podcast and the caption of YouTube and podcast, the full length recording. And come on next week. I'll probably be doing it like Monday night next week. Any exciting cases tomorrow? Just extractions all day, local. All right, friends. I'll see you on the flip side. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being part of the podcast fam. All right, guys. Let's make it a great week.